Now, there's nothing nicer in football and indeed in sport in general than to welcome the arrival of a great player or a great team. And since we last spoke to John Giles and Liam Brady, who are joining me now, Liverpool have won the Premier League after Chelsea beat Manchester City last Thursday night. Liverpool, of course, managed by Jurgen Klopp, who's been there since for 4.5 years, and didn't start brilliantly, but I think when we talk about it, we'll find out how much is achieved. But before we go on to that, John and Liam, just a brief mention of the weekend's cup games. The semi-finalists are Manchester City, Manchester United, Chelsea and Arsenal. Liam, a good result for Arsenal. I believe they got out of jail a little bit, got a last-minute winner.
Yeah, it was a game they didn't dominate. In fact, they suffered quite a bit. Sheffield United looked very dangerous at set pieces. They had a goal disallowed, rightly so, just a little bit offside from a corner kick. The ball was headed back across the goal, and the Sheffield United player was just offside. So Arsenal were a bit fortunate then to get away with that. Then they got a bit of a soft penalty, Eamon, scored it, and that looked all right, but McGoldrick, one of the Irish players playing for Sheffield United, got an equaliser right towards the end, and Arsenal only had about 2 or 3 minutes to go before it went to extra time, and you would have fancied Sheffield United, but Arsenal, on the breakaway, scored a pretty good goal, so they scraped through, really, Eamon. Not that impressive, but it's good to be in the semi-final, especially with the teams that are in it now. We've got Manchester City, we've got Chelsea, we've got Man United, all the big teams, and Arsenal are in the last four.
Yeah, John, you were watching the matches at the weekend. I know you watched the Manchester United Norwich game. I was talking to you during the game. Norwich, I thought, put up a really good performance with a lot of young players trying to play football, but United just had a little bit too much for them in the end.
In the end, Eamon, it wasn't easy by any means. I know United made a lot of changes themselves, but it was a match that they just about got away with it.
Yeah,
I mean, they weren't convincing in any way. Norwich did well. They ran out of steam a little bit at the end, but it wasn't an easy one for Manchester United. And I'd say in the end, obviously, the manager would be very, very happy to hear the final whistle.
Yeah, Liam, the FA Cup is it's a consolation as much as anything these days. And I suppose in that context, if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer manages to win it, it'll be a welcome boost. But it's a million miles away from what's happening with Liverpool and Manchester City at the very top of the table, isn't it?
Yeah, but they have improved, Manchester United. There's no doubt about that. We talked about Fernandes last week. He has added something to their midfield, Eamon. And they do look a much better team than they looked at the start of the season. So
yes.
I think they've got something to look forward to. Now, whether they'll be able to close the gap on those two teams remains to be seen. But certainly they're going in the right direction.
Yeah, and John, the Fernandes, he looks a good player. I mean, there's been a lot of hype around him, comparing him to Paul Scholes and all that. He's just a very intelligent player who gets on the end of things in the last third of the field, delivers the ball well, can see a pass. Not really a game changer, I wouldn't have said, but a good addition to any team.
Yeah, he's a good player, Eamon. I mean, it doesn't bother me. They keep describing him as a midfield player that's made all the difference with Pogba in the middle of the field. And my take on it, he's not a midfield player. He's a player that plays in front of the midfield. And very good when he gets the ball, but he's not going to dictate the game. Eamon, I hear about the partnership between Pogba and him in the middle of the field. He's a very, very talented lad. I think he's a goal-scoring midfield player, and there's nothing wrong with that, as we know. But I don't see him as a player who's going to dictate from the middle of the field. But he's a very, very good player, and he is a good addition to the team. There's no doubt about that.
Now, Pogba was on the bench again. He came on. He played in the playmaker role, really. He strolled around. he delivered a pretty decent pass, I think, for one of the goals. What did you make of this? A, the fact that he was on the bench, and B, his performance when he came on?
Well, he was Pogba, Eamon. He's a very talented guy who can do very, very good things, deliver a good pass. He can do all the things that, as far as quality is concerned, as a midfield player. But the mentality is not there, Eamon. You don't know what to expect from him. You know, is he going to get on the ball? Is he not going to get on the ball? Is he going to try? Is he not going to try? So you can't depend on him. And like this has been going on for, 2 years, 3 years, that people saying on his day, if he's in the mood. Once I hear that, Eamon, about a player, I forget about him, you know. Like all players, you look at all the great players, they're always in the mood. And they're always having a go. They don't always play well, but they're always having a go. But in Pogba's case, you don't know what to expect. And I don't think he really cares that much, really. I think he's out there to please himself, and if he doesn't enjoy it, he doesn't enjoy it. Tough, you know?
Yeah, Liam, it's a good point John makes, isn't it? You know, if he's in the mood, if you're on the kind of money he's on, and you cost as much as he cost, 100 million euros, you should be in the mood every time you turn up, shouldn't you? Including for training.
That's right, but he's not genuine, is he? You know, we've seen that over the last 2-3 seasons. I think the problem with Pogba is it's all about him, and I have a feeling that if they're going to bridge the gap between, let's say, United and City and United and Liverpool, Pogba is not the man to do it, Eamon. And if I got an offer, where Solskjaer could get a lot of money in and he could spend it on other things, I would take it. I think he's trouble going forward. You just never know what kind of influence he's going to have in the dressing room. It hasn't been good up to now, and I think Solskjaer, if he got the chance, he should get him out and get more genuine players in.
Yeah, I mean, in the post-COVID world, John, with the big clubs have lost a lot of money and continue to lose money all the time. They're playing behind closed doors. They're going to have to refund some of the television money to the television companies, and it's quite likely that the transfer market will go down a bit from the crazy prices. You wouldn't be wanting to have that guy around, would you? So you might take a cut price deal.
I think, well, even the cut price deal, Eamon, because they're going to have to, whoever goes to, are going to have to pay his wages. And I think this virus has changed a lot in football, Eamon, because, as you say, the big money clubs don't have the 300 and 400 and 500 grand that Pogba would be expecting in a move. So he might buckle down a bit now, and I wouldn't be surprised if he did, and think, well, Manchester United is the best I have at the moment. I'm not going to get any, because in the last couple of years or so, there was definitely talk about Real Madrid, Barcelona, all the different clubs, and they could afford him. Maybe not so now. So he might have to buckle down.
Yeah.
I think he's capable of buckling down and doing more. He's just a selfish guy, Eamon, who pleases himself. And in the last couple of years, in my opinion, thought there was bigger money elsewhere. And now that hasn't happened, then he might start playing for Manchester United in a way that he should have been playing for the last 3 years.
Okay, now, just before we finish with the FA Cup, Leicester, John, I've seen them twice since the game resumed, and there was no sign of them scoring a goal. Yesterday, they were beaten by Chelsea at home. For some reason, the goals have dried up and the threat has dried up. Can you put your finger on it?
Well, yesterday, Chelsea were excellent. Really, really impressive. And they didn't
Frank Lampard took 3 players off at half-time, John. Younger players, actually. And he made 3 substitutions. Did that make a difference, or were they playing well all the time?
I think they played better in the second half, all right, Eamon. So obviously the substitutions might have made a difference. But I didn't see any time in all the matches that I watched that Leicester were really. I don't think Vardy had a chance in the match, Eamon. Didn't look like it. I thought Chelsea were excellent, and the longer the game went on, the better they got. and they were very, very impressive, I must say. They didn't give Leicester a sniff, really, in the match, in my opinion.
Right. Liam, he's done a good job, hasn't he, Frank Lampard at Chelsea? And he's been given a little bit of money. He's bought Timo Werner, who was a player that many clubs had on their wish list, from Leipzig, top scorer in Germany. And in general, Lampard's teams, and they showed against Manchester City in that game last Thursday night, the attitude is right, the tempo is right, and everyone is getting about their business.
Yeah, it's going in the right direction, Eamon, without any doubt. He has an abundance of very, very fine young English players there. I think he's now added to a squad the way he would have wanted. He'll get rid, I think, of probably another couple of players at the end of this season. Maybe Willian, maybe Pedro, to make room for these guys coming in. I think he's got a player from Ajax called Ziyech who's coming in, looks very useful. Yes. So he looks the top manager in the making. But like everything else, we all know, I mean, you've got to win trophies, haven't you? And he's got a chance with the FA Cup this year. That would be a real bonus for him. What we saw against Bayern Munich, there's a bit of a gap to bridge in the terms of the Champions League. You know how good they are going forward, and whether they could get in the mix to win that again. But no, it looks a very young, a very good manager in the future.
Yeah, and their big ambition, of course, is to secure a place in the top four. They're fighting with Leicester, Wolves, Manchester United for that spot. So we'll see how that works out. Now, I want to talk to both of you about Liverpool. John, I'll start with you. The job that Jurgen Klopp has done there has been remarkable. It didn't start off particularly well. He had to sell Coutinho. He had a couple of duff goalkeepers, Karius and Mignolet. Karius is one he brought in himself. And for a while, it didn't look as if it was going to be a success. Although he had inherited some very good players from the Brendan Rodgers. It was Brendan Rodgers who bought Firmino. It was Brendan Rodgers who bought Henderson. No, actually, it was Kenny Dalglish who bought Henderson. What do you make of them now, John? How good are they? They've lost 2 games in 2 seasons.
Well, I think they have the foundations now to go on to be one of the great teams and they're a great club as we know what they've done in the past. But this particular team, he's done a fantastic job, Eamon, and it takes time, and it did take him time to do it. But he did the right things in what he had to do. In other words, what all managers do when they go in, Eamon, great managers, they get rid of the players that they want, and they get rid of the players that get the players in that they do want.
Yes.
So that's all judgment. In other words, he's no good, I get him out. But the big thing is getting the players in that you really want and trust and are good.
Yes.
And that's proven to be the case. Whether he did it himself or did with the scout, and it doesn't matter, they got them in. It's 90% of the job getting the right players out, the bad players out, and the good players in. And that's what he's done, and he's done it in a big way. I think the foundation is there now to build a dynasty, Eamon, like the Liverpools of the past and the Manchester United of recent times. So the way things are, I think it's very. I'd be very, very optimistic for Liverpool's future to keep winning trophies. But fingers crossed, Eamon, always fingers crossed. That, you know, as long as other clubs come in, want to buy some of the players, they can't resist, and the players can't resist. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, but at the moment, I think things are looking very, very rosy for Liverpool, and there's a strong foundation there for the future.
Liam, we've seen great sides, great Arsenal team, great Manchester United team. When Ferguson was there, and the look of this Liverpool team is similar. Arsene Wenger and Ferguson created great teams, and you've seen them, you know them inside out. Thierry Henry, Bergkamp, Vieira, all these great players. I think John is right. I think this is a great side now, but they need to, and I think they will, go on and win more trophies. Where do you place them, Liam, when you compare them to, say, the Arsenal of Vieira or the Manchester United of Roy Keane, Paul Scholes?
Well, I think they're as good as anything we've seen in the past, Damon. But what they haven't done is they haven't, won the multiple trophies that those clubs have done. But I agree with John. I think the foundation is there for them to go on. You know, you look at the age of the players, you look at the attitude of the players, the hunger of the players. I think they're all genuine. I think they all get on. They all want to win. And that's why there is a real foundation there for them to go on and carry on the success. Well, they've not done too bad, have they, in the last... Well, since Klopp has been there, they've got to the Europa League final, which I think was a bonus in his first season there, because he inherited a team that had some talent, but they also had a lot of dead wood that he needed to get rid of. And year by year, he's consistently made the team stronger and made it better. We saw against Real Madrid in 2018 when they lost the Champions League final that the goalkeeper had to go, you know.
Yeah.
It was Karius at the time, but Mignolet and him were chopping and changing, and, it wasn't helping the defence. And what did Klopp do? He went out and he got Alisson in for, I think it was a world record fee for a goalkeeper, but he's been absolutely brilliant. A year before that, he got Van Dijk in to sort out the centre-back position in defence. And, he's continually added to the team, and I would expect him to do a little bit of that this season as well, Eamon. There's talk about maybe Koulibaly, the big centre-back from Napoli, to come in, and Lovren to go in part exchange. So I would say they're already planning for next year and what they can do in the Premier League and in the Champions League. But he's done a brilliant job. And I think I've said it to you before, there's nothing to dislike about his team.
No.
They all work for one another. There's no gamesmanship involved. There's no play acting like they're injured and they're not, He's just been a breath of fresh air for the Premiership. And what I would say is that there's always been, great managers in the Premiership. You mentioned Wenger there. You mentioned Ferguson. You'd have to throw Mourinho into the mix.
Yes.
But Klopp is different. Klopp is different from all of these. He's never moaning. He never really moans about anything. He just gets on with it. And if he's had a setback or a defeat, he accepts responsibility and he says, well, we weren't good enough on the day. Where all the other three managers, they never saw it like that publicly. Yep. So I think he really has brought something different to the Premier League, and it's been great.
Yeah, different and very, very welcome. Just to remind ourselves, one of the things he had to do, John, was sell Coutinho to Barcelona. Coutinho obviously wanted to go. He got 142 million, but as Liam's just pointed out, he spent that money wisely. He bought Alisson, the goalkeeper, for 72 million, and he bought Van Dijk for 75 million. But he also he signed Andy Robertson from Hull for 8 million. He gave Trent Alexander-Arnold his debut. He bought Mane, I think for buttons, 32 million. He bought Salah for less than 40 million. He got Matip on a free transfer from Schalke. He bought Fabinho for 39 million from Monaco. That's 15 million less than Fred cost Manchester United. So he has really bought well. Now, I'm going to make a confession. I'm a Liverpool fan. And for the first year, he had a guy called Moreno playing left back in that game that Liam mentioned, the Europa League final, who cost him every week. He bought Karius. And for a while, I thought, God, this guy, he's just no good. And I know that in a conversation we had on the podcast, you called him a one-trick pony. So I'm confessing my own sins.
No, hang on.
No, you warned me. No,
I call him a one-trick pony with a great trick.
Exactly.
That's a very important part of it. I didn't say he was a one-trick pony.
That's right.
I said he was a one-trick pony with a great trick.
Yeah.
And the trick was that it was go, 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 go in every match he played.
Yeah.
That's what I said about it. I didn't mean it in a derogatory sense at all. I mentioned it in a complimentary way. Of course, it can be picked up the wrong way, especially if you leave out that last bit. But it took him time. I mean, of course, it took him time. And as I said at my first chat to you there, to get the right players in, get the bad players out, that took time, and he did it bit by bit because he wouldn't have the money to do it overall. I think he's done a great job. I don't take back what I said about him being a one-trick pony with a great trick. The trick is get great players in, let them play, and go, 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 go in every match they played. He takes no nonsense from anybody at all. I mean, there was a little incident there at Old Trafford. I think Henderson was taken off, and he walked past him in a bit of a huff, and he called him back. And Henderson was like a kid, like a little kid with him. And I think he has that with all of the players, which all great managers have, Eamon. There's nobody, he doesn't favour anybody in front of anybody else. He does what he believes to be right, and he doesn't care about anybody. And I think so far he's done a great job, and there's no reason why I think that he shouldn't continue to do that job.
Liam is following in illustrious footsteps at Liverpool. Bill Shankly, of course, and Bob Paisley, and Kenny Dalglish, all the great players, Souness being one of them, but many, many great players going back to when John was playing for Leeds. So the bar is set pretty high, but it has to be said, his personality, his intelligence, his exuberance, his charisma, his relationship with the fans and with the players, all of these things are really admirable and makes you warm to the guy, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. You've said it all there, Eamon. He's been a real good fit for the city of Liverpool, or the Liverpool Football Club, hasn't he? There is a working class city. He got that as soon as he went in there. He's probably was at a city similar to that in northern Germany, in Dortmund, where they've got a great following as well of working class people who love their football club, and it's a similar kind of situation that he has at Liverpool, and he's handled it absolutely brilliantly. I thought one of the things he said post winning the Premiership last week was, if we stay humble, we can go on and do much, much more. And I think that's what he drills into the players. You're privileged to play for this club. Let's all stick together. We can really have a great time together. Let's nobody get carried away with it all. It's amazing. You look at all the other clubs we were talking about, Pogba at United. We talk about Arsenal with Ozil and Luiz. And there's no characters like that at Liverpool, because he just doesn't want them. No matter how talented they are, they have to play for the team, Eamon, don't they? And that's what's brilliant about his team. They all play for the team. As soon as they lose the ball, they're at it to get it back. From the forward line to midfield. And sometimes we've said, they push up too far, don't they? And they leave themselves a little bit playing offside, a little bit vulnerable at the back. But if you look at the league table, Eamon, they've conceded the fewest goals. So it's a wonderful tactic that he has to get the ball back so quickly. And it's paid real dividends for him. And I think he had that at Dortmund. He's brought it to Liverpool. But to have a work ethic like that, you have to have humble players. And I think that's what he's got.
Yeah, John, it's always been recognised, and because you played in a great team, the senior players in the team set the tone in the dressing room, on the training ground. And I think what Liam said there is very, very important. They all seem to be good lads. There's no prima donnas. There's a warmth between them all, and ultimately football is about the players, and there's so many really outstanding players that he bought Mane and Salah for 2, Robertson, again, he gave his debut to Trent Alexander-Arnold. Fabinho he bought, didn't play him for about 9 months, allowed him to acclimatise, and now he looks a really top midfield player as well. So, from your own experience, John, of being a great player and playing in a great team, that humility that Liam referred to is so important, isn't it?
I mean, you can't have a great team without that. You just can't have a great team. Everything is done for the and it starts from the manager, obviously, because the manager, first of all, gets players in of the right character and knows that they're going to do what he wants them to do, and dominates them. You know, Ferguson dominated, Wenger dominated, Dunrevy dominated with us, and demanded that. Well, first of all, the character of the players has to be right, Eamon. They wouldn't sign a Pogba or a player like that. They just wouldn't do it. I know, like in Klopp's case, if he was offered Pogba for nothing, he wouldn't take him. Eamon.
He wouldn't take him.
So that's your starting point. Honesty of effort.
Yep.
Play for the team. That's your starting point. After that, it's ability. Yes. And if you get players of ability with that attitude, which the manager demands, which Klopp does and all the great managers do, now you've got a team. And you have your odd bad day. And all players won't play well, but some players will have an off day, but they're carried on the day with the other players, and they're all in it together. They're all in working together, working for the team. That's the game. And Klopp has created that. Obviously, I think he did it at Dortmund as well. He created it. He's created it at Liverpool as well. So that's your starting point, and the rest is the ability after that. And he's got players of the right character with the right ability.
Yeah, it's worth pointing out, actually, incidentally, that when he was managing Dortmund, he signed Lewandowski for €3 million. Just a final point, Liam, about this great Liverpool team. The senior players, the influential players, we haven't mentioned James Milner, who's been around the Premier League for a very long time, but seems a terrific pro. Henderson also, I think, has improved massively for Klopp's coaching. And Andy Robertson, I think, is another leader. Firmino, who is a Brendan Rodgers signing, actually, in 2015. The senior pros there are very good. And Milner, in particular, has been outstanding in his contribution.
Absolutely, Eamon. What an example of how to be a top professional. You know, he's fit. You can imagine him saying to himself, you know, every year of a new season, I'm going to get in this team. You know, I'm going to play as many games as I possibly can. I'm going to show the manager that he can rely on me, and he can play various positions as well. I mean, all the way across midfield, and he can play at full back when he's been called upon. He's been brilliant. But the other one that's been very, very good as well is Henderson, because in that 26 Europa League final, he wasn't even in the team. Eamon. He wasn't. Klopp had him on the bench. You know. He was another one. It looked like, well, is he going to figure in this Liverpool team going forward? But he knuckled down. He's worked hard. Every game he plays in, he's effective. So I think there's real examples of leadership in that team. And you put the goalkeeper in the mix, and you put Van Dijk at the back. The two full backs have been absolutely brilliant. You know, Klopp was lucky to have Trent Alexander coming through, but he's handled him very well, and he looks a lad that's going to have an absolutely brilliant future. Robertson is another fella that had to wait his time. We couldn't understand. We were still doing the Champions League on RTE, the three of us, and we couldn't understand how Moreno was keeping his place in the team. And it was a fair criticism of Klopp that he wasn't making the right selection, but maybe thought Robertson wasn't ready, but when he did put him in, the lad really grabbed his chance, and he's been brilliant at full back on the left-hand side as well. So,
I think
go back to the start, Eamon. They're of an age, maybe not Milner, but he'll hang on in there, but they're of an age, this team, to be able to dominate if as Klopp says, they play with the humility that they play with, and they play as a team.
And just to underline the point that John just made, Liam, that really says it all. If he was offered Pogba for nothing, he wouldn't take him. I agree with that, don't you?
Yeah, I probably do. It's a hell of a statement, though. It's a hell of a statement, but it does make you think. Well, why would you bring in a guy?
You're bringing in trouble.
Brings in trouble.
Yeah, he could really upset the apple cart, couldn't he? Yeah. So you probably would say thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, well, I think that's the most profound statement anyone's made.
Well, I think it's going to make the headline of your podcast. Put it that way, Eamon.
I think it is. Well, it's absolutely right, though, John, isn't it? That one bad apple can rot the whole barrel.
Yeah.
And I think you're totally right.
I didn't say that to be sensational. I honestly believe it.
No,
because if you get it set up like Liverpool have, the spirit and there's good in that, and then you bring Pogba comes in, and one of the days he has one of his moody days, he doesn't try. What's Klopp going to say to the rest of the lads? You don't have people. I look back on Arsenal and Manchester United and Leeds in my day and Liverpool in their day, Eamon. None of those teams, if you look through all of those teams, had a Pogba in the team. None of them. Absolutely not. No. Because you don't have great teams, Eamon, with players in it like that, And just to finish up, Eamon, if I was picking a footballer of the year this year, I'd give it to Milner.
Yeah, well,
for his services to the game, services to Liverpool, and he's still capable of contributing. But anyway, that's by the way. Sorry, yes. I've just thrown that in. But the Pogba situation, I didn't say to be sensational. I'd honestly believe that would be the case with Klopp. He'd say, as Liam said, thanks, but no thanks.
Okay. John and Liam, thank you both very much for joining us on the podcast. That was a most enjoyable conversation about a great team. And as Liam said, I think, and John agrees, I know, they have to go on and win more trophies. They've got to retain the Premier League, and they've got to go back and prove what I believe is true, that they are the best team in Europe in next season's Champions League. That's all we have time for. Thanks to John and Liam. Thanks to you for listening.